They said he had no creativity. So he decided to build the world where anything is possible. Have you ever felt like everyone stopped believing in you, just when you needed to be seen the most? This is the story of someone who experienced rejection in a brutal way. Walt Disney was not born a genius, celebrated or accepted. Before creating dreams, he collected closed doors, harsh criticism and falls that would have made anyone give up. When he was young, Walt believed his talent could open new paths. I had ideas, I had desire, I had hope. But one by one these certainties were being crushed. He was fired from the newspaper where he worked because, according to his boss, he lacked imagination. He was accused of dreaming too big. They laughed at his ambition. And worse than all that, they stole from him the most precious thing he had: his own creation. Oswald, the character who could change his life, was taken by the hands of those who never believed in him. The humiliation was not small. It wasn't silent. It was as if the world was screaming in his face that he wasn't enough, that he would never be more than just another lost person trying to do something that would never happen. And for a long time perhaps Walt believed that too. Each failure seemed to confirm what others were already saying. Each failed attempt was like new proof that he was wrong in believing in himself. And now I ask you, how many times have you been made to doubt your own dreams? How many times has the outside voice been so loud that it drowned out your own faith? How many times have you felt that it was better to give up than to continue collecting failures? What no one saw in Walt Disney's history is that, deep down, there was something that not even the worst criticism could erase. An almost invisible stubbornness. A thread of hope that resisted, even when everything seemed lost. And it is this resistance that we need to talk about today. Because maybe what's missing in your life isn't more talent, more opportunities, or more luck. Perhaps what's missing is exactly what Walt had in that moment when the world turned its back on him. An invisible decision to continue. If you've ever felt the weight of being discredited, if you've ever been tempted to give up because of the pain, I want to invite you to comment here. I know what it's like too. Your story matters. Your voice matters. And you can be sure that you are not alone. Stay with me until the end of this video because the story you will hear today can rekindle the faith that was forgotten inside. Take the opportunity now to leave your like, subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications. Your turnaround can start right here. When we talk about rock bottom, most imagine a quick moment, a fall and then a turnaround. But the truth is that for Walt Disney, rock bottom was a slow and painful process. A sequence of falls, a lifetime of being crushed by small defeats that, together, almost made him give up. It wasn't just the dismissal that hurt. It wasn't just hearing that he had no imagination. It was the way those words began to echo inside him, as if they were the only possible truth. After losing his job, Walt tried everything to make his dreams survive. He opened a small studio, Laugh-O-Gram. He invested what he didn't have. He worked endless hours. He bet every penny on his stories. But the world seemed deaf to what he wanted to say. The projects failed. The money is gone. And the studio, which was the symbol of his hope, closed its doors, leaving only debt, shame, and a suffocating sense of failure. It was hard to look people in the eye after that. It was difficult to explain to his family, to the few friends he still had left, that he wasn't just a reckless dreamer. It was difficult to maintain one's faith when the world seemed to confirm, day after day, that he was wrong. That dreaming too big was an unforgivable mistake. That daring to imagine something different was grounds for punishment. But as if that wasn't enough, the biggest wound was yet to come. When he finally managed to create a character that could save him, Oswald the Lucky Rabbit, Walt saw his work stolen. Literally taken out of your hands by executives who cared more about profit than creation. A blow from the back. A betrayal disguised as a business deal. Everything he had built was ripped away from him, and he was left with no character, no contract, no studio, nothing. It was supposed to be the end. For any ordinary person it would have been. And maybe for a few days it was. Walt returned home carrying not only financial loss, but a much deeper internal pain. The pain of seeing what little remained of his belief was crushed. The pain of believing that maybe, after all, the world was right and he was wrong all along. And this is where I want you to think about yourself. How many times have you felt like all the effort you made was for nothing? How many times have you trusted in something, believed, surrendered, and still ended up empty-handed? How many times has life dealt you that blow that you didn't see coming? Walt was there on the floor with no answers, no strength, no plan B, just the painful memory of everything he tried and lost. And it was at this point, in this absolute darkness, that something invisible began to form. Something that Walt himself still couldn't see. The silent seed of a new decision. Sometimes the most important turning point in our lives happens in the deepest silence. No audience, no advertising, no recognition. Just us and the raw decision not to give up. This is exactly what happened to Walt Disney. From the outside, no one would have noticed anything. He was just one of many who failed. Another one who should go home, put his head down and accept what the world had decided for him. But inside, something started to change. An invisible thread of hope that, despite all evidence to the contrary, refused to be cut. On the train ride home, Walt sat on a random bench away from the other passengers. Nobody looked at him. To the world, he was just a dejected, defeated young man, another lost face among so many. But there, on that bench, he made a silent pact. With an old pencil in his pocket and a crumpled piece of paper in his hand, Walt began to draw. No script, no expectations. Just the automatic movement of the hand trying to follow what the soul was shouting. And from that crooked and improvised line, a little mouse with big ears and lively eyes was born. A simple design without pretension, but loaded with something that Walt still couldn't quite explain: life. At that moment, as the train continued its leisurely journey, Walt looked at that drawing and felt something he hadn't felt in a long time. It wasn't exactly hope. It was something more raw, more real. It was the feeling that even though he had lost everything, there was one thing that no one could steal from him: the ability to imagine, to create new worlds, to give life to characters that didn't yet exist. Even bankrupt, even humiliated, he still had what mattered most. It was there, in that silent gesture, that Walt decided something that would change everything. He decided he would never put his dreams in the hands of others again. That he would never again allow his future to be controlled by those who didn't believe in him. That your imagination would be your sacred territory, untouchable, invincible. It didn't matter if the whole world doubted it. It didn't matter if he had to start over from scratch, 100 times, 1,000 times. He would do it his way. For your heart. For your vision. That little mouse's creation seemed small at that moment. Just one more drawing among many. But for Walt, it represented a definitive internal choice. The choice to continue creating even without guarantees. The choice not to give up even without applause. The choice to protect what was most precious inside him, even when everything outside told him to stop. And it's funny to think how these big decisions are never accompanied by lights or drums. They happen in the dark, in the silence, in moments when everything seems lost. They are invisible to those looking from the outside, but they completely transform those who choose to do them. As the train swayed and the landscape blurred past the window, Walt continued drawing. He continued dreaming. Not with the certainty of success, but with the irrational faith that if his imagination survived, he would too. No one on that train could have imagined that that simple squiggle would become the symbol of a revolution. No one knew that, among so many haggard faces and broken dreams, one of them carried an invisible decision that would soon begin to change everything. When Walt Disney got off that train car, he had no money. There was no studio. There was no support. But for the first time in a long time, he had something even stronger: the conviction that his imagination was non-negotiable. In that spirit, Walt went back to work. He and his brother Roy started small, with minimal resources, betting on something that still seemed impossible to the rest of the world. And it was there, from this silent beginning, that Mickey Mouse was truly born. Not as another cartoon character, but as a new beginning. A new story. A new pact with what Walt believed was greater than all the rejections he had ever faced. When Steamboat Willie was released in 1928, bringing Mickey to audiences for the first time in an animated sound short, no one knew they were witnessing the beginning of something that would span generations. The reception was explosive. What was once considered a foolish dream now drew applause. The critics who once called him unimaginative now bowed to the innovation he brought to the world of animation. The boy who was called incapable was now creating a new market. The man who was almost erased by failure now began to design what would become the largest entertainment empire in history. Walt Disney didn't just rebuild his life. He built a kingdom where dreams were not only allowed but encouraged. Mickey has become a global icon. From a simple short film came an explosion of new characters, new ideas, new possibilities. Walt conceived and created Disneyland, a place that no one believed could work, a park where adults and children could live out their fantasy together. And against all predictions, it was an absolute success. Throughout his life, Walt Disney accumulated 22 competitive Oscars and 59 nominations, numbers that have still not been surpassed today. He received medals of honor, his name was immortalized in stars, monuments and affectionate memories spread throughout the world. Each recognition was an echo of that silent decision he made, long before fame, long before anyone believed in him. And perhaps the most beautiful thing of all is remembering that it all started with a drawing made on the train. An invisible gesture, born in the midst of pain and shame. A simple trait that carried the weight of a choice: not giving up. Don't give in. Not selling what was non-negotiable within him. The world sees the castles, the films, the achievements. But what built all this was not public glory. It was the secret decision, the silent promise made in the midst of failure. It was the invisible choice that Walt Disney made when no one else believed, not even himself. And now, I want you to take a second to think. In truth, how many times in your life have you felt like you had something special inside you, but the world insisted on saying you didn't? How many times have you daydreamed about something that seemed too big to tell anyone because you knew that if you said it out loud you would hear laughter, criticism, or dismissive looks? How many times have you held an idea in your hands like someone holding a fragile spark, only to later feel the pressure of fear erasing everything? Look at your trajectory so far. How many projects have you started with a heart full of hope and ended with a head full of doubts? How many times have you trusted someone to believe in your dream and found closed doors, cold walls, words that hurt more than help? How many times have you thought about giving up just because it seemed like no one saw what you saw? Walt Disney's story seems distant when we look at how big it has become. But if you look closely, you will realize that it is made of the same pains that you have already experienced. The difference was not luck. The difference was not supernatural talent. The difference was a silent decision, made in a moment of total invisibility, where there was no applause, no support, no guarantee. And maybe now you are exactly at that point. Maybe you're looking at what's left of your dreams and wondering if it's worth trying again. Maybe you're feeling like no one understands what you're carrying inside, that your ideas are too strange, too big, out of reach. Maybe you're trying to convince yourself that it's better to accept what the world expects of you, put your head down, and follow the safest path. But what if it isn't? What if this discomfort you feel is precisely the sign that there is something inside you that was not born to fit into other people's frames? What if you, like Walt, are just an invisible choice away from starting to build something that today seems small, fragile, even silly, but that can grow to reach places you can't even imagine yet? I'm not talking about magic. I'm not talking about easy promises. I'm talking about that decision that no one will see. The decision to continue when everything says to stop. The decision to protect what is yours, even if it seems insignificant now. The decision not to let the rejection of others define what you can or cannot be. Think about the ideas you left behind. Think about the projects you have shelved. Think about the dreams you hid because you were afraid. And now he asks himself, in all honesty, did they really die? Or are they just waiting for you to have the courage to silently make the decision that could change everything? Walt's story began with a scribble. A shaky line on an old piece of paper. Yours can start with a choice. With a step that no one will applaud now, but that tomorrow can build the world that only you can see today. Now tell me here in the comments, what is the idea that still pulses inside you, even if no one has believed it? I really want to read your story because sometimes it is in this silent sharing that we begin to rebuild our own strength. If today's story sparked something inside, leave a like now and subscribe to the channel. Every choice we make to get closer to what inspires us is also a way of protecting our own dreams. And this journey doesn't stop here. In the next episode, you will meet the woman who was told no 12 times. Rejected by publishers, discredited by those who should have supported her, she made a silent and powerful choice. She decided that the whole world would read the story that pulsed inside her. And made it happen. Your turning point may be closer than you think. See you in the next chapter of this journey.